and welcome to Blockleaders.io with me, Gillian Counsel. Today I am delighted to welcome on the show Jetsy Sprey. Am I saying that right? A very, nearly getting there. That's the Irish pronunciation. Who is the Chief Legal Officer of EuropeChain and co-founder of EOS Amsterdam and also law firm in a major law firm in Amsterdam. Jetsy, thank you so much for joining me on the program.
Welcome. Happy to be here.
You wear a lot of hats. You mix legal, investor, and tech. What was your first love?
My very first love was actually movies. I started out as a executive producer movie. Well, not as an exec straight away, but as an assistant, obviously. And I did it for like a couple of years, and then I became a lawyer. So that's a bit of my first love. Second love is law, and then the blockchain came along, and I hopped on board. Yeah.
And when did you get involved? When did you first hear about blockchain?
I heard about blockchain quite a long time ago, but it was very much hyped at a South by Southwest. I'm sorry, I got an article. I have to mute my phone. It was very much hyped at the South by Southwest conference where I was at, I think 2015 or something. It was blockchain all over the place, and I didn't really get it because from my point of view, for my work as a lawyer, it didn't seem to be that interesting. It's more like, you know, distributed ledger is like immutability and that sort of thing. More something for a public notary, like, you know, to have a register that works, you know, that's reliable, that sort of stuff, but not for a more interesting bit of law where I work in, like contract law or even proceedings and stuff like that, intellectual property. But then I got this call from Red, our CEO, and he told me that's a few years later, and he told me that it was a blockchain that was more flexible, that had more possibilities, and he introduced me to EuropeChain, to EOS, obviously, to the EOS IO, and I looked into that, and I figured, well, this seems really like something I should look into, because this might have possibilities that go far beyond the old-fashioned, slowly energy-consuming blockchain technology that I thought I was familiar with. So I looked into that, and that's how it all started.
Did you ever, at any stage, you know, you went from Bitcoin to EOS, did you ever look at the Ethereum blockchain and think, ooh, those smart contracts, they're going to put me out of business one day?
Well, that's exactly what people told me. Lawyers are going to be out of business, but it's, I've always thought, and in a way I still do, figure that smart contracts are not really that smart. And you will always need lawyers to interpret them and to try and fit them into the legal hemisphere or the legal context, so to speak. And that's the reason why Red asked me to become a EuropeChain partner or EOS Amsterdam partner, because quite rightly he made the analysis that all these smart contracts and this technology was going to bump straight into the regulations that are in place, the laws and regulations that are in place in the real world, and that should we want to have this technology accepted by a lot of people, and especially by larger or smaller companies, we need to offer something that kind of convenes with the law, rather than, you know, be some sort of libertarian, anarchic sort of stuff. So that's why he took me on board, and I still think he made the right decision, because it's you know, if people want to use this technology, it needs to be compliant with at least regulations such as in Europe the GDPR. I mean, if you're not compliant with the GDPR, as a company, you're not even allowed to use the technology. So that's my introduction. I think also having I don't want to overestimate my presence there, but I think we're basically the only company in the blockchain sphere that has a legal a legal person in the C-suite. And maybe there are more, but then they don't have the experience of, you know, like a few decades of contract law and stuff that I bring to the table. So I think, you know, it's a nice match, and I love working at it.
Mm. What is the environment like in the Netherlands? Is the government pro, anti, adopting? Is it how positive is it towards blockchain?
Like there's a like many governments, there's a difference between the public way they present themselves and the actual stuff they do. And a lot of the regulations we bump into are based on European laws, regulations. So like the GDPR. So the maneuvering room of any specific government is quite small. And then the other stuff we bump into is basically security regulations. And I think that the Dutch are quite doable. So that it's not necessary to change a lot. It's more, you know, you have to be a little creative and bend the rules, maybe bend the rules a little this way or that. But in my view, it's let me rephrase that slightly. I think we can do basically what we want to do in the Netherlands and in Europe, and that what we offer is compliant. And so, you know, if that's the case, there's not so much that has to change in order to get in a massive way accepted by the public.
I want to deviate just slightly, and I'm going to come back to the GDPR then. DeFi, which is exploding at the moment in many shapes, the sushi, the yams, you know, all of the food species. Do you have a view on that?
I first had to look it up, obviously, what DeFi means exactly, because it's like a container, you know, it's like a container word. A lot fits in it. Basically, I think it's what blockchain is made to do. So it's, you know, if you're in some sort of trustless, immutable surroundings, you offer the possibility of people to make some money with the money they got. That's basically what it is. So I thought we were already having a lot of DeFi, but apparently it's like now it's only bumping up all over the world. And the question is, why not like a few years before, if you ask me?
Do you have an answer to that question?
No, not really, because it was really one of the first things I thought about that we could use this technology for.
Yeah. So, I wonder perhaps do crises, like obviously the financial crash brought forward Bitcoin. So maybe the pandemic has made people more, you know, they're looking towards different solutions, and it's maybe that's where the excitement's come in. But that's a bit of a diversion. Going back to GDPR. So you're a lawyer, right? Can you explain how you can have a GDPR compliant blockchain, since GDPR is about data and blockchain is about immutability?
Yeah. So that's GDPR is about data. Blockchain is about immutability. And there's one thing that sort of seems to collide with that, and that's the right to be forgotten, because there's a right of every data subject to require a data controller, data processor, or data controller to erase his or her data. And since blockchain is immutable, that would mean like a no-go. But that's a good thing of having a lawyer on board, because any lawyer can tell you that the immutability, that the right to be forgotten is not an absolute right. It's got to be, it has to be balanced against the rights and also the interests of other data subjects and people. And obviously having a blockchain which is immutable is important for a lot of reasons as well. So it's a balancing act. And what we've done with EuropeChain is just do that balancing act. So first of all, that means, and firstly, and really most important, that we store as few data on chain as possible in order to minimize the risk. We got a protocol for every debt that wants to onboard the chain that they have to fill in before they get the permission to launch to actually launch the debt. In order to ensure that you know you don't upload onto the blockchain sensitive information like your password, etc. Or I don't know. I'm not going to try and be funny and do this physical human things you don't want to share with the rest of the world, but stuff like that. So that's one. And if you do that, that balancing act that just told you about becomes, you know, the balance kind of tilts towards the blockchain, towards the interest of the immutability. Even if that sort of, and then there's a second element that helps tilt the balance towards the blockchain of that balance test, and that is that we have a filtering option on the history node. So that should you wish to be forgotten, at least for the official nodes, it's impossible to do a search on your personal data. So that's the two most important elements of the compliancy. There's some more, like you have to define the roles of controller and data processor, etc., etc. And so there's a system of checks and balances also that I've also introduced. But you know that's more like maybe a little, yeah, that's more like any other server client sort of atmosphere. But the most important bit is try and stop data from being uploaded, especially when it's not encrypted.
So when customers engage with EuropeChain, they don't have to worry about that. Is that so? They follow procedures and processes, and the GDPR is taken care of for them.
Yeah. Well, that's so. First, there's a lot of questions they got to answer themselves because obviously they have to be compliant themselves as well. And if there's a certain level of complexity, you know, we help them to ensure that their DApp is being developed in a privacy by design sort of manner. So there's no surprises there.
What type of customers are you expecting to get onto EuropeChain?
We have if I look at the project, the people we currently talking to, that's an immense, broad. It's all over the place, which also kind of makes me worry. But it's since the possibilities of EuropeChain of a compliant blockchain are so large. I mean, you know, all over anyone that has a company and that needs to be compliant should look first at blockchains that are compliant. It's basically all people all companies that want to use a blockchain. And I'm not in the sales process, so there's a lot of reaching out, and there's a lot of interest, and we work with it. There's already a few dApps live now. The Counsel Freight is one of them, and so Counsel Freight tracks containers all over the world and stores that on the blockchain, so that people in a transparent and immutable way knows where their freight is at. So they can also add services to that sort of information. I think that's a very good example of what we do and what the world can expect from blockchain.
And so you have a whole rake of customers who are looking at the GDPR compliant nature of the EuropeChain. What makes EuropeChain better than its competitors, or does it have competitors?
There's a couple of blockchains that well, maybe it's good to zoom in a little on the exact nature of the GDPR compliance we work with, or we try to establish here. What we're not trying to establish, because there are blockchains that do just that. That is that the traffic, or that people can use blockchain in a fully anonymous manner. And there's a lot of blockchains, some blockchains, I must say, that announce that they are privacy first sort of blockchains, because you can use them without ever having to reveal your identity. From my business and legal point of view, that's just one element of privacy, of data protection. So what we do, because sometimes you just need to know, which people you interact with. So from my point of view, I'm not sure there's much competition in this field. Let's say blockchain that ensure GDPR compliance without offering some sort of totally anonymous environment.
I guess that boils down to the fact that it's more business focused as opposed to a privacy coin or a privacy, it's aimed at businesses, because as I understand EuropeChain, you can be billed in fiat. You guys are real people. There's a lawyer, there's a head of legal, there's offices, and you guys are treating it like a business, well, it is a business, but you're taking away kind of the mystery, GDPR, immutability, but it's corporate. Yeah,
basically that was the little hesitation I had in the beginning with the blockchain as well, was like the anarchy, like the connection with dark web and weapon sales and ransom software and that sort of stuff, and when I got into EOS.io, I realized it's just a genuine, very promising technology that can bring a lot of ease to a lot of processes on this planet, for businesses. So it doesn't have to buy. He doesn't have. It's more than just buying guns and God knows what else.
Okay, so I'm going to finish now, but make a comment that you are a bit of a dark horse, because in addition to the tech, the law, and the investment, you also play the saxophone, a bit of a dab hand at the old jazz. Is that not the dark side? Is that the dark side of music? So next time we'll have to have you perhaps playing a few, whatever you call the things.
Bands.
Next time we'll do that. Oh dear. Well, thank you very much for your time, Jetsy. Very interesting. We'll chat to you again soon.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.